Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Hygge at Home podcast. We've got a brand new format. I'll be speaking to different guests from all around the world and talking about Hygge in different aspects of life and filling your life with heartwarming and inspiring stories and giving you hints and tips about bringing Hygge into your life and into your home. We're going to be every 2 weeks and we already have some amazing guests lined up. Hygge is a Danish concept that embodies cosy contentment and well-being through enjoying life's simple pleasures. It's about creating a warm, inviting atmosphere and finding joy in everyday moments. Key elements of Hygge include comfort, mindfulness, gratitude and connection with loved ones. Think of sipping a warm drink by the fire, reading under a soft blanket, or having intimate gatherings with close friends. While often associated with winter coziness, Hygge can be practiced year-round. It's not about buying things or achieving perfection, but rather about cultivating a sense of comfort and contentment in daily life. Hygge has gained popularity as a way to counter the stress of modern living, encouraging us to slow down and appreciate life's simple joys. So I started recently looking at the Hygge hashtag on social media, in particular on Instagram, but also on Pinterest, and I noticed that there's a real disconnect between the true meaning of Hygge and its social media representation, mainly to do with homes, what homes should look like and home decor, and really giving us unrealistic expectations about what our homes should look like and also our lives too. So I have a very special guest today, somebody who, when I met her and heard her talking about what she does, I knew that my listeners and the Hygge at Home community would really value her advice, tips, thoughts and inspiration. Isobel Star is an award-winning and an SIBD, Society of British and International Interior Design, accredited interior designer with 20 years of design and industry experience. Isobel works across Yorkshire and the UK to create meaningful, blissful and beautiful homes. She is known for her love of colour, heritage, second-hand pieces and designing for all the senses. Her practiced eye can reveal the beauty in any space, and she has a wealth of knowledge and a passion for relaxed and time-honoured homemaking. Hi Isobel, thank you so much for joining me today on the very special relaunch of the Hygge at Home podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to be here. Hello, listeners.
So today, I thought what a great topic to talk about, but the Instagram effect. I've really realised recently that social media has transformed the whole essence of Hygge into this kind of visual aesthetic. Did a little bit of research. I typed in Hygge into Instagram to see what it came up with, the accounts that it came up with, the reels, the posts, etc. And all I seemed to find was these perfectly preened countryside homes with a view, nothing out of place, which to me is lovely. You know, they're very nice to look at, but that's not what Hygge is. It's kind of lost its essence really because of social media. So how do you think the rise of social media influencers and content creators has affected people's perception of what a home should actually look like and what it should feel like?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it has affected people's perception. And I mean, if we look back, the desire and the ability to have a sort of designer looking home has moved more and more into the mainstream sort of over the past 50 years, I suppose. And it's something that more people aspire to and they're aware of. And it feels much more accessible than it did before. I think that's down to a few things. It's the rise of DIY, increase in home ownership, interiors, magazines, TV shows. That all preluded social media. So this was a movement that was already had like significant momentum before social media came onto the scene. But when we see a beautiful image of a home on social media, what we're actually seeing is a space in a frame. So, you know, it's a photograph. And you don't really get the sense of like how the whole room works. And lots of the images are visually pleasing corners or little vignettes. And that's great if you're enjoying those images for what they are. I think the problems come when people quite naturally want to replicate that gorgeous content in their own home, but the images don't really translate into whole rooms and spaces because they're only really small pieces of a much bigger puzzle.
Yeah, like you say, I think when we see those images, we're almost expecting that that's what their full house looks like. And obviously, as we know, that's just unachievable, isn't it? with the best will in the world, you can keep your house tidy, clean, pristine, but like you're seeing those little snippets, those little images, we're seeing one part of that home. We have no idea what's going on in the background, do we? So it's something it's not achievable at all.
And because, there's a lot of the substance is missing, and it creates a sort of misunderstanding in the sort of general public and the general sort of consciousness about what it takes to create a beautiful home. Like that instant nature of consumption when you're looking at those images is actually in direct, it's like at odds with the reality of the creation, because it makes it look really, really quick and easy, and it actually really isn't.
It isn't, yeah. And that brings us really nicely into the next thing that I was going to ask you about is authenticity versus perfection. There's clear differences again between our lived in comfortable homes, our sanctuaries, and those perfectly curated ones that we're seeing all across social media. So in your experience, what makes a space truly feel like a home beyond its appearance? What is it that makes it feel homely? It's truly our home beyond just what it looks like in those snippets and photographs.
It might sound odd for an interior designer to say, but I don't believe that a home is a look. I think home is a feeling. Although what you can see does play a big part in creating that feeling, it's very, very far from the whole story. And I think that's sometimes the issue with social media, because it is quite possible to have a beautiful home and it can be a really enjoyable process, but social media just isn't telling you the whole truth. And so it kind of sets people up for a bit of a fall. I always say the whole story it's so much more than the visual. It's what can you smell, what can you hear, what can you touch, taste. All these things play a part. Home is a whole body experience. And I think what really makes a home is the care and consideration and thoughtfulness. So it's the people and the stories, like the things that can't be measured, and you can't go onto the internet or into a shop and buy that. We really interact with our homes.
Yeah, it's when I heard you talking, and when you said about that, the second time that we met, that it really got to me. I really realised that, and actually made me feel differently about my own home. Yes, it may not look perfect. It may not be this, I might not be able to just take a photograph of every part of the house and it be something that everybody wants to achieve.
But nobody can.
It feels good. No, exactly. It feels good.
But I mean, that's the truth of it. A lot of effort's gone into those images, a lot of time. It is not, it appears like it's a very quick snapshot of somebody's life. But it's not. I mean, we know that with doing this podcast, it's not, it doesn't just happen. You don't just rock up and do it. Planning's gone into it. Sorry to dispel the myth.
We're not just rocking up today talking. No, planning has gone into this. That's great, and I think people would really like to hear about that too. Hygge on a budget, then. So there are ways to create a Hygge atmosphere without expensive purchases. The other thing I've realised across social media is these homes that we're kind of aspiring to, these accounts that we're finding, which seem to be associated with Hygge lifestyle, Hygge living, perfect home types of things, always seem to have some sort of ad, about the latest lamp that you should be buying to make your house this, perfect place, or the sofa that you should be buying, and it's and that's obviously content creation. It's those paid ads, isn't it? Some people may go for that, which is fine, and I'm sure it will look lovely in their homes, but for majority of us, we don't want to be seeing those things and thinking, oh my goodness, I need to go and buy that thing now because that's what a perfect home looks like. So in your opinion, what are some simple, affordable ways that people can bring more Hygge into their homes and to make it their sanctuary?
Well, so I completely agree with you, Laura. Hygge is actually got nothing to do with possessions. It's the opposite of that, really, isn't it, Hygge? It's about enjoying universal and simple pleasures, the company of your friends and family, and that alone time that's just unstructured, that's got no real agenda or purpose. In your own home, I think the best place to start would be to be thinking about how you can make space for that maybe that more quiet, reflective time, space for company, and to make having your friends and family over easier, more comfortable. You know, how can you support the simple things that will bring you pleasure and create happy moments? So what I do with my clients is I spend a lot of time thinking about their daily routines and talking to them about their daily routines in detail, because part of my job is to make their daily life as easy, comfortable and pleasing as possible. And this is something that I think people can just do for themselves. And what I always start with is asking a client if they can identify happy moments in their home. Those are just split second, they're often not long periods of time. They're just split second moments where we just feel satisfied and pleased and happy. And examples that I hear regularly from people are things like opening the curtains in the morning, opening a door or drawer on a really loved piece of furniture, sitting in a favourite chair or a particular spot in your home at a particular time of day. And once you've identified it, if you think really carefully about what's happening in that moment, so not about particularly what you can see, although that does come into it, but also what you can hear, what you can smell, what are you touching, are you tasting anything, and then thinking about what can you see. Because if you start to identify what's happening with your senses, you can really zone in on that happiness and look to recreate it and enhance it.
Yeah, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what our home should bring to us, especially because life is so fast paced. You know, we're rushing around 100 miles an hour. Everybody's working, everybody's feeling a certain way. You want your home to give you those really lovely, nice feelings, don't you? So I completely agree about using the senses.
It needs to be really personal, because I think we get told a lot what will make us happy, and what we need to really do is tune into what that actually truly is, not what somebody else is telling us it is.
Yeah,
and
completely.
I think everybody
that.
has, and everybody can do that. I think everybody can identify that moment. Everybody will probably have at least one.
You know, thinking about the pressure of this perfection that we all feel, and like you say, we're being told that we need to be achieving. I think many people listening, and even myself on many occasions, have felt the stress that comes with trying to achieve that perfect home. So what advice would you give to somebody who's feeling overwhelmed by the pressure to have an Instagram worthy home?
I mean, first and foremost, just step away from the feed. It's if you're feeling like that, then you really need to turn off the social media for a bit and just focus, bring the focus back to yourself, I think, and your life and your family and your own home. And I think, do that happy moments exercise, because you might actually be quite surprised and quite pleased at what you actually uncover about yourself and about what's important to you. It is actually harder to identify than we might expect, because there's so much noise around us. There's so many sort of people vying for our attention.
So that's quite a nice mindful activity to do anyway, isn't it? That task that you've just said is to give yourself time to actually close your eyes and kind of go around your home and think about the senses and think about what you can hear and what you can smell and what you can taste. I think that's such a nice thing to do anyway. So you're exactly right. Switch off the feed for a while. Ignore it. We don't have to be on it so much, and really be present in your home and think about what you've achieved.
And I think if you're finding that you're not happy with your home, I think we often put up with frustrations and discomfort without even stopping to question it. I'd be fairly willing to bet that a lot of frustration is actually about function in your home, temperature, lighting, layout, maybe clutter. Those are the things that sort of need to be looked at first. And so often we're sold this sticking plaster of, like you said, this Hygge light that's going to make our lives better, and it is just a sticking plaster to sort of cover up maybe those fundamental foundational things, which
It's just a temporary kind of thing there. It'll make us feel good for a few moments, and then you'll start to think about, oh my goodness, how much money have I wasted on that? The function of the home is still, it's still not exactly as I want it. So that's really good advice. Thank you for that. Thinking about embracing imperfection, for me, I've realised that, there is beauty in lived-in spaces, and there's beauty in those personal touches. I've got things that the children bring home, and they're scattered all around the house, but it's memories of them growing up. So can you share examples of how imperfections, things that don't necessarily match, or personal items and touches can actually enhance that Hygge feeling in a home?
Well, I think firstly, the idea of perfection's really quite an odd sort of notion, actually, because in nature there is imperfection. If you buy a handcrafted wooden table with knots and things, that is imperfection. So I do sort of question whether perfect is even a thing. It's not based in reality, essentially.
No, exactly. It's not reality.
It's not reality. No, it's something that as humans we've sort of made up and then sort of hold ourselves to it, and it's just nonsense. For the personal things, if we look at sort of two popular and universally admired aesthetic examples of what great home style is, so the English country house and the Swedish home. The English country house aesthetic is made up of collections and layers of artwork, furniture, textiles, ornaments that have been built up over years and generations, and those are often very personal, with a big emphasis on family, and more often than not a lot of those items have stories connected to them. But then the Swedish home aesthetic is associated with minimalism and space and light. But the thing about the minimalist sort of look in a Swedish home is that it isn't about perfection. And I think it gets sort of almost like misquoted, it gets misunderstood, because it's actually, and I think Hygge's the same, it's about simplicity. So the purpose of that minimalism is not motivated by the visual appeal or as a rejection of colour or personal or decorative items, but it's just a practical consideration to just keep things humble, to allow space for the personal, to allow space for friends, family and friends, to increase the light and warmth, which are in short supply in those countries during the winter. The Swedish home and Hygge, they encourage us to keep what works for us and to let go of the rest. Items that are personal and that mean a lot to you, that if they work for you, that's what you need to keep. And I suppose by sort of looking at those two examples, what I'm trying to illustrate.
We thought about that. We do look at these Scandi, minimalist homes and think it is just a design thing. But you're completely right. I've never thought about actually they're not their spaces are set up like that.
Yeah, it's not a design decision. And also those two styles are so different. The English country home is very layered. There's a lot of stuff normally, but it's definitely not perfect. It's usually got frayed edges. And then the Swedish is very, very difficult, but actually they've actually got something in common. Neither of them are actually attempting to achieve any sort of prescribed visual. It almost happens by accident, because that's not the agenda of those houses. The agenda is, their purpose is to recognise the importance of family, friends, tradition, and the significance of the personal stories within the home, and to honour that home and the time that's spent within it. And that,
and like you say, having that space, friends, to have family around, because Hygge is a very kind of social thing. The Danes do like to kind of socialise, have friends, family around, cook together, bake together, so they need the space for that. So that I've never thought about it that way, but that makes complete sense.
In both of those cases, what's happened is that, like, from a commercial point of view, those beautiful ideas have sort of been hijacked a bit, and then these gorgeous visuals that occur as a result of those underlying values, sort of almost by accident, then get sort of packaged up and sold back to us as sort of an ideal way to live. But actually, I suspect what we're really attracted to and what's really appealing is the underlying values of home and family, and that quality time, be it with others or with ourselves.
Yeah, and we all need to bear that in mind. I think that's one of the key takeaways from today, is to bear that in mind. So to summarize, what is the most important thing that you want the listeners to remember about creating a truly Hygge home? What are your key takeaways?
Be true to yourself. Focus on what really matters to you, and not in a visual way. The visual thing comes right at the end, really, if at all. Hygge it's a feeling. It's not a purchase, and it's something that you create. It's not something that you consume.
I really love that, Isobel. I think that just completely sums it up. And you were the right person to be speaking to about this today. So thank you so much. I know myself. I take a lot away from that. Thank you, and I think my listeners will too. And it wouldn't be the Hygge at Home podcast unless I asked you, what is Hygge to you? What things give you that lovely, warm, cozy feeling inside? It doesn't all have to be blankets and hot chocolate. What is Hygge to you?
Well, so I've got essentially an essay here on what it is to me.
Go for it.
So many things are little things that I love. I love the smell of fresh herbs in my kitchen. I love that. And that's, happy moments. That's one of my happy moments, as I go past them and I catch a whiff of the fresh herbs.
Yeah.
I like the sound of the whistling kettle. That just feels so homey. The sound of rain outside, which is a classic one, I think. And the other thing that I like in terms of possessions and things that I can see is, so I'm lucky to have quite a lot of talented friends, sort of, with my background in art and design. I know lots of other artists and designers. And so over the years, I've bought things from them, or they've gifted me things. So I've got lots of lovely bits of artwork, all with that personal connection and stories attached. And I've also, got pieces of furniture that I've had since I was a teenager that have come with me all around the country
on
over
your
the years.
journey along the way.
I think, yeah, and I think I could put those items in any space and it would instantly feel like home. So those personal, and none of it's expensive or fancy, but it's mine and it means something to me.
Yeah, it's yours, and that's what gives you that's what makes your home and gives you those lovely feelings. And I think what a great way to, again, your Hygge is the kind of the hints, the tips, the inspiration that you've given us throughout the podcast. So very much, Isobel. I'm sure we'll get lots from that. Thank you so much for chatting to us. Okay, thank you.
Lovely to chat to you.
Thank you so much for listening today, everybody. Hopefully you've gained some hints, tips and inspiration from Isobel. Isobel mentioned about frustration with function and clutter in your home, which ties in really nicely with our next guest on the podcast, Cher Pryor, who will be talking to us about mindful organising in 2 weeks' time. I'll be sharing Isobel's details and where you can find her and how you can get in touch in all of the details on the podcast and on the YouTube channel and across social media. So until 2 weeks' time, have a great couple of weeks, and I'll see you all then.